existence since 1972, and all that time it has been exploring, through experimental archaeology, what life might have been like in the past. The farm now has a whole range of buildings, starting at the Stone Age and working right up to the Saxon period, but what the farm is missing currently is a Bronze Age area. And that's where you guys become really important, because you're going to become part of a really exciting project here at Butser to create a Bronze Age house.
So the Bronze Age in Britain runs from about 2200 BC till about 800 BC, roughly, in between the late Stone Age and the Iron Age. And one of the things that really is important about the Bronze Age is the expansion of agriculture. We do see agriculture just before that in the late Stone Age, but the Bronze Age is when we start to see this big expansion of field systems. Among the things that are in Britain in the Bronze Age, introduced during the Bronze Age, are these little fellows. Sheep with wool, most importantly. So what we're in here is an agricultural landscape. The Dunch Hill excavations, most recently the one that we're going to be building this house from, also sit in an agricultural landscape, past and present. Lots of evidence of Bronze Age fields. So we're going to get you to build us a nice little roundhouse in Bronze Age fields.
Here's the proposed location for this Bronze Age house we're planning to build. It's at the bottom of this field here, and one of the lovely things and one of the reasons we've chosen this location is because if you look beyond where the house will be, there's nothing. It's just lovely farmland. There's no other buildings in the background, so it's a fantastic view, and it means that we'll be able to see the house sitting in splendid isolation, so you can admire the shape of whatever it is that we construct. To get to it from the main part of the site, we'll have to come down a pathway, and we've concluded that the nicest thing to do would be to make a droveway, which would represent something akin to some of the archaeological evidence, with wattle fencing on either side of the droveway. So it'll be a really nice entrance to that area. It'll be really fitting.
I'm sitting here in one of our experimental roundhouses here at Butser Ancient Farm. What we're going to be doing as a team is taking a series of post holes that were excavated at the Dunch Hill site and turning it into a structure, exactly as has been done here. Experimental archaeology is really a process of taking what's unknown, what is in the evidence of archaeology but is not complete, in our case a series of post holes, and building it into a structure, turning it into the concrete. But remembering it's an experiment. The idea is we're developing the best guess on what those post holes represent. The process is to put posts back where the post holes were. So we replicate the ground plan that we have. We replicate every piece of evidence in the archaeology to create a structure. Of course, most of what was there is missing. So we have to fill in those gaps. We have to decide what is missing. What was the roof like? What were the walls like? What was inside the house and what was it used for? Those are all best guesses, but that's what we do as experimental archaeology. If the house falls down, maybe it's not a good guess. If the house stands up, how long does it last for? What we're going to be doing with the Dunch Hill dig is not just having a great time building a house, but we're going to be able to provide a bit of archaeological evidence, and more so, we're going to be asking a lot of questions. And that really is the most important part of experimental archaeology.
We're inside one of our Iron Age roundhouses now, and I thought it'd be really useful to show you the structure of the building and how these are built, and how knowing how these are built has helped us think about what we will do when we come to constructing our Bronze Age house. So if we've got all these upright post holes in the ground suggest upright posts. So on that premise, we insert upright posts into the ground, and to lash them all together, we weave wattle made of hazel or willow to make a round wall like this building here. And that's fine, but as soon as you try to sit a roof of some kind on it, the weight of the roof, the force of the roof will start to push out the walls. So in order to stop that happening, we need to turn the roof into a true cone. And to do that, we need to actually lash all of the roof members together using battens a bit like this in a continuous ring all the way around the roof, so that what we create is essentially a cone sitting on top of a cylinder. But that's like saying that I calculated this in my office at home as a structural engineer. But when you build it on site, in reality, using organic materials, it doesn't always work out exactly as you plan. And that's one of the things that we study here over time, is how the buildings move and alter with the organic processes of decay and wear and tear. That kind of got us to thinking a little bit about why there was a central post hole in the middle of the Bronze Age house that we are planning to build here. There's one really obvious suggestion, that beautiful perfect cone and the beautiful perfect cylinder started to fail in some way. So, for example, if this were to break and the integrity was lost, your roof would start to weigh down very heavily on the wall and start to push the walls out. So why don't we just get a big post and jam it into the middle and use it to hold up the top of the roof? And that would stop the building moving much further. So the idea that it was a repair is one quite real possibility. On the other hand, it would only have taken a couple of house building experiences like that for our Bronze Age people to realise that in order to avoid doing it as a repair, why don't we just stick it in there from the very beginning so that we have preempted that situation? So although structurally and from an engineering perspective, the roof doesn't actually need a central post, if the building starts to decay and move over time, that post would stop that happening in the first place. So it could be really useful. There could be other possibilities for that central post as well. We have the idea that possibly in a slightly larger house than this, it might have been used for storage, and it may have held up a mezzanine level that you could have stored all sorts of things like extra thatching material on top of. So you can see already we've come up with 3 possibilities for the justification of having a central post hole in the middle of the house.
So we're actually in a little Iron Age enclosure here. You can see we've got the houses that Claire and I were talking about before, and behind me here is a small fence. Now, what we're going to be doing in our Bronze Age area is, as we mentioned before, making a trackway using this sort of fencing material and perhaps some hedges if we can as well, that allows us to get into our house. We're also going to be making a little enclosure around it, so it's going to be a little enclosed space that's walled off or fenced off from the surrounding land. Remember before we said that the Bronze Age was a time of a lot of agriculture, and of course in the Bronze Age we have sheep, we have cattle, we have horses, so it's possible, probable, that those trackways were used to drove animals and also to keep them out of an enclosure where you had your housing. Now, even though we know that the love of sheep means that in the Bronze Age men were men and sheep were nervous, we don't always want to cohabit with them. So Claire, are we excited about this project?
Yeah, we're really looking forward to you being here. I think it's going to be one of the most amazing things we've done at Butser since we've both been here. So I'm really looking forward to having you all here.
Can't wait.